Cool. So since this is being recorded and it's posted on the Dhammarato Dhamma and the Open Sangha channel, I thought it would be good to give some updates since the last time we talked. Where we were at that meeting was saying that, hey, we can just send the money to a PayPal and not need to go through the 501c3. It turns out that was a little preemptive to say, and we actually need to get the legalities of it figured out in terms of having an actual corporation to take the money. So that's where we're at now, that we're going to, Christopher and I had been talking about this maybe a week or so back, about the steps to take to get the 501c3 started. And so that's one of the main projects to get done right now. And then there was also some discussion about, prompted by Ian, basically the point being, hey, this is a volunteer organization, and there's going to be not much, these people are volunteering and there's going to be delays in conversation. One person's going to say something, someone else is going to be busy with other stuff, and then it'll take half a week to get a response. So making sure that before this organization is up and running, that we have solid processes and visions for what these products are going to be and how to make them work well. So unlike last time where it seemed like there was too much on the plate, that we have things that we know we're going to do and we know how we're going to do them well, and we know that there's going to be someone or some people doing these things and having enough time doing them. So that's a little update since the last time we talked. If anyone else has anything to say, yeah, Tyler, and then we can get into the what Tyler was talking about in the chat of we had a certain list of things that would be valuable, and what things do we want to follow through on, and what do we not, and how do we want to follow through on them.
Cool. That's really helpful, Parker. Thank you. I just want to make sure I fully understand where we're at, because I saw in that Google Doc you posted like a bunch of notes. And is it the case that like you feel that you've kind of outside of this meeting aligned with some other folks on like what that core offering is, or is that more like a starting point for the conversation?
I did some thinking by myself, and not really conversing with anyone else. So I think it would be good for this conversation to cover those things.
Okay, cool. Nice. I mean, if you're down for it, unless I'm not sure if you had did you have a way you want to like structure the conversation? Either like maybe like a framing question potentially that we could ask that. Yeah, I'm not sure if you had another direction you want to take the call to, that's also cool. But I just had maybe like a framing question is like what's like the core nugget of like value that the Open Sangha Foundation provides, and I think we talked about this a lot in the chat, but the thing that I was feeling personally was that I was feeling on a very like tactical level trying to build the website, and that there's like a lot to build, right? Like, and a lot of it was like kind of coming down to like me making the website of like, man, this is like a lot of product. There's a lot of coordination here. And for me just to even like create the website, was going to be very difficult. And I work in like software as my job, and I was like, man, this thing is like not going to get maintained. Like this thing's about to fall apart immediately after I make it, which is what happened with the last website, right? And so I was like, all right, I really don't want that to happen. I don't want to put the work into something that I think is going to fall apart. And so I was kind of like, I think it'd be helpful if we focus on what is like that core unit of like what we're trying to bring into the world, and how do we like double down, like triple down on that, and make that amazing and like super robust. And so maybe that's like a good way to open it up to the group of like, do y'all have ideas about like what that core offering is? And I know Dhammarato posted something in the chat about that. I'm kind of curious, maybe you could start us off, kind of like, how do you think about that, Dhammarato?
I said it's so good for you, but not for me.
Your mic's muted, Dhammarato, on Skype.
we can't hear you, Dhammarato. I think you're
the button on the bottom of your computer screen. the blue mute
Nice.
microphone button.
Okay, there we go. All right. Okay. Yes. Because it's windy, the microphone kept turning that blue frame on and off. And so I muted. So, and I hear some background noise. And so that's why I paused. So, in any case, yes, I would say that if there is a core point, that core point would be to get what I would call budding Dharma teachers connected with the watch. That if you think about it, if any one of you actually wanted to devote your life to the Dharma, and everybody has those kind of thoughts, what procedure would you go through to do that? And most of the people in the US wind up paying a huge amount of money to one of the paid teacher training programs, and all they get out of it is a certificate with no place to go after that. That in fact is the teacher training programs are almost the same model as the retreats. You pay in advance, you go, you do the retreat. When the retreat is over, you're over. Okay, with nothing to begin, not much of a middle, and the end is, over. And so that's not exactly the way that the Dhamma has always been planned out by the Buddha, that it's always an ongoing idea of Sangha. And so that's the primary goal without giving a long lecture on it. The goal is to get people who are really interested in the Dhamma into an environment where they can flourish with the Dhamma. And I would say that that would be more important, that we get them into a wat or a temple is more important than getting them into the right temple, getting them into a temple, and then they'll get into the right temple. So I've actually changed my ideas about the Sangha in the sense that the ultimate goal is to take the business and take the money out of Western Sangha. That's the ultimate goal. And that's going to take long time. I'll probably be dead before that happens. However, if we don't do anything, Western Buddhism is lost down the sewer, and there will never be much of a Sangha in the US and there are in the world outside of Asia. And so this is what I'm looking for. Number one item. Now, to support that, one of the things that I see is needed is all of those people who already consider themselves Dhamma teachers. Everyone is in their own little world. It's almost like every one of these Dhamma teachers is their own private one-room schoolhouse. And everybody in their class is in the same class, just like in a meditation retreat. All the students are in the same class, regardless of whether it's a brand new student or whether they've done 10 retreats or not. They're all still in the same class. And what we need is more of a structure like a university where different people know each other. And the chemistry professor does not fight generally with the math professor. They cooperate. They have the same students and they work with them that way. And so this is the next point is that getting the teachers into a Sangha, getting the teachers into an organization that is, let us say, friendly enough that they're willing to share students and recommend to this student, oh, well, why don't you talk to this teacher? I know him and he can help this particular thing. So that's a way of looking at it, because right now all the teachers are competitive with each other based upon the Western business model rather than all friends with each other. So we're looking at now established teachers and new budding teachers, because it's going to be around the teachers that whoever is teaching the Dhamma will define what is the Dhamma in the West. just like Jack and Joseph have already defined what it is now. And the monks don't, because the monks are not out there in the world. This is something for the lay people. That in fact, this is something that a lot of people don't understand, but Buddhism is not all about monks at all. That any one of those Watts in the United States that will have 3, 4, or 5 monks are supported by 400 or 500 people, maybe 1,000 people in that community. And so this is what we're looking at is that if we can get a group of people who understand that the Dhamma teaches generosity, and the only way that a teacher can teach generosity is by being generous with his student. And charging them money is not a way of practicing generosity. So those would be the two primary elements, and I would say going for the established teachers first and getting them into Sangha, getting them to communicate and cooperate with each other. So one of the things that I would recommend for that would be a professional or business Skype, where, Zoom, or maybe there's also Google Classroom or something like that. So that in Skype here, the more people, the slower Skype is, and also more crowded the screen is. As you can see here, on my screen, I've got 6 people with Robert and Keyshawn up in the corner. Okay, so we can't see everybody the way that you would on a Zoom call. And getting the teachers. Now, what would we do on these Zoom calls? The first couple of them would be like we have this call, would be organizational. But ultimately, what we want to use that Zoom with is teachers teaching the Dhamma on the Zoom, mostly for other teachers. Student teachers teaching the Dhamma on the Zoom for other teachers and other students of the Dhamma. In other words, we can help each other learn how to teach the Dhamma by practicing it. That I highly recommend that people teach the Dhamma. If there was an old recording that we did with Dan and Steve on Guru Viking, where we talked about what is it that qualifies one to be a Dhamma teacher. The answer is, I've got puppies now who are my Dhamma teachers. I got a new puppy in the house, and the dogs here is actually quite an interesting show to watch the puppy approach the dog while they're growling at her, and so she cowers, and then she'll sneak a little closer, and they'll growl again, and so she cowers even more and sneaks even closer. It's very fun to watch this. So anyway, this is the idea, is on the 2 stages. One is established teachers, and the other one is newly budding teachers. And that there's more to it than that, but this is basically the primary goal, with ultimately the idea is taking the money out of it and building community. So the first item on the list would be, I would think, let's get the teachers that already exist organized. Offer them something.
Just what came to mind when this wasn't even doing research specifically with the Open Sangha Foundation, but I found a website called board.org or socialmedia.org. I'm not sure if this is a typical kind of organization, but it was essentially started with social media, where a lot of high-level leaders within big companies doing social media work. It was a sort of organization that offered a way for, if a high-level person wants the feedback of someone else, they have a pressing question to get answers for it. So this would be the sort of structure organization we can look at for inspiration. I'm not sure what the specific name would be, but there are a lot of internet forums we'd consider, is this going to be the way to do it through text? Could a teacher, are we going to have teachers? So here are the three things that organization offers. It's a different business model. So a company will pay to have three of their lead people to join the organization. So they pay like a big fee every year. And in response to that, the leaders in that organization will be able to ask questions, and they'll be able to get fast feedback by email. They have community calls like we're talking about, where the language they use is facilitated phone discussion on deep issues, and then direct discussions where they introduce you to a member who can help. So like probably another leader of some kind. So those are just ideas we can look at. If anyone else has any more familiarity with other nonprofits that do things in other industries similar to what we'll be doing, I think that would be helpful as a guiding starting place.
That's a good point. Yes, we can find things from other people. While you were talking about that, Parker, I was again impressed with your organizational skills. I'm really glad that you're involved with this. Then, in fact, I would like to make this point that Parker is going to be kind of the ramrod or the whip or the go-to guy on this item. That one of the big problems that I have seen in many other situations like this is that it almost always winds up being a one-man show. And that the one-man show is the guy who wanted to do it all in the first place. Okay, this is kind of like the entrepreneurial spirit. Well, guess what? I am not an entrepreneur. I do not have the entrepreneurial spirit. What I do have is the vision that money is not the right way to take Western Buddhism. And so, other than that, I don't have a lot of plans other than what I'm thinking about in the sense of let's get the teachers organized and let's get new teachers into then in fact that would be really a good idea for established teachers. If a teacher really wants to be established but he's still trying to get established, then let's get him into a Watt also. Now, one of the things that I know of for sure, because I have been in many Watts, hundreds of Watts, and one of the things that I know that is true in every Watt without a doubt, and that is that they're all interested in the Dhamma, every one of them. Funny like that, right? And they're interested in sharing the Dhamma. And that I've talked to Achan just recently, both Achan Reet and also Achan Tanet. One's in Washington and the other one is in Washington State. And these guys, as well as others, would be very happy to have. In fact, I know for sure that we can get another Westerner into Watt Greensboro, or two or three, because there has been at least 3 ordained Westerners in Watt Greensboro in the past, and I know that Mahasamsak would be willing to go through it again. So this is something, also the Westerners, when they think of Watt, they think of monks. They don't think of community. And yet most of the people who live in a Watt, whether it's in Asia or even in the United States, most of the people who live in the Watt are not ordained. It's a community center. And you'll have people who do gardening work and all kinds of other work at a Watt just for the free rent. Actually, there's not much rent to pay because there's not much. I mean, the monks will get a private room, but not always the Westerner until they've been there for a while. But sleeping accommodations is not much of an issue. But being around some senior monks. Now, that's another point about Western Buddhism, or in the West, where they have had Asian people bring monks from Thailand. They're not going to bring a brand new young kid in. Though the brand new young kids are the ones who really want to go to the U.S. because they're thinking, if I can get a religious visa and get into the U.S., then I can disrobe and be free. No, they want the really old senior monks who are going to stay monks when they come to the U.S., which means we've got some very, very high quality people in the U.S. And so that's the connection that we need to make, is to get Westerners interested in spending time in the temples. Already Keyshawn has gone. Already Eric has spent more than 6 months. So we've got proof of concept. Eric actually says Keyshawn is on the call. If you'll come on, he will verify that, yes, that the monks that he meets are very, very interested. They're not saying, oh, go away, you're a white boy. They don't have that mentality. That they're willing to bring people in. The proof of concept has already been done. We know.
Dumar, I just want to make sure I understand. So when you say get a Westerner into the Wat, and this is somebody who like might be on a teacher path, this is not necessarily someone who is like trying to go through the ordination path, right? This is somebody who they're like deeply invested, but
that's even better.
It'd be great if they were trying to get ordained, but like that's not necessarily
Wouldn't it be great if within a year or two we will have one of these Skype organization calls and one or two of the guys that are on the call are in the robes? That would be really magnificent. That's too much to hope for. But getting guys associated with the watch so that they can start. Here's one of the plans would be, if a guy can move into the Wat within a month or two, we can arrange for one night a week that he would teach Dhamma and teach meditation to the community. Now you've got 10 or 15 or 20 people in town who are interested in that Wat, and they would have never been interested in that Wat before if there hadn't been a Westerner there. So what we're looking for is the pioneers who go into the Dhamma first and then go into the Wat, so that they can then draw the community into the Wat, so that then the community will continue to be drawn into Buddhism. I've seen this happen many, many times in the U.S. of the Westerners becoming interested in the Wat only because there's another Westerner already in the Wat. So the next thing that would happen would be a weekend retreat. By the time a guy's in the Wat for 3 or 4 months, he's already met enough of the lay people who would support it. He can talk it up. And I know in every Wat there will be some old ladies who would be very happy to feed 10 or 12 Westerners on Saturday lunch and Sunday to run the Wat and to run a retreat. And so that would be the way to do it, very slowly getting it organized like that. But what we need is a method of communication to all of the people, with not within the Wat community, but just out on, for instance, Reddit. That it would be really nice if we could go on to Reddit and say, hey, there is a Wat that's having a retreat next weekend. Why don't you go? That's in your community. And get some of the people who are in online Buddhism get into the real Dhamma that they can find at the Wats.
And just to make sure I understand. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I understand. So there's like, people who are like aspiring teachers and people who want to get deeper into Dhamma. And then you're connecting them to more experienced teachers or what. And then you have, so I just want to make sure when you have like these Zoom calls, that's usually between these aspiring teachers and these experienced teachers. It's not necessarily like something you would post on Reddit and be like, hey, everybody come join our weekly call. It'd be more of a focused group of people, is my understanding. And then you would like also do things that are separate events that would be like separate postings that engage like the broader public. Is that right?
Yes. I would say that I would not be against newbies just popping in on a Zoom call, but I wouldn't want to do a hardcore advertisement. Hey, all the newbies come and be on this call. Okay, that it's got to be kind of a middle path in there. Sure, we want new people on, but we don't want to be flooded with new people. That we want people who have already gotten some Dhamma, who have actually gotten enough Dhamma that they're seriously considering, what am I going to do with my life? That pumping gas for Exxon sucks, and I want to do something else. And so everybody has those kind of thoughts. But when we say, well, the only option to that kind of thought is to quit the job, buy an airplane ticket, and go to God knows where, because God only knows that place. I certainly don't. See, that's the problem. It takes a kind of, let us say, guts. I recognize that I did have that. I actually quit the job, got a ticket, and went to India. Except that I didn't quit the job. I was already working at a university, and that gave me a chance to go and come and go and come. But eventually I did quit the job and just went total Dhamma dude. But I couldn't do it all at once. And so this is the idea then, that guys don't quit their job at first. They go visit the Wat and they kind of move in. And after they kind of move in, then they would quit the job. That would be the way that I would be looking at it. So an easy transition, because it can be done easy, but everybody who has the idea, oh, I'd really like to quit my job. And then they say, wait a minute, that's not going to be easy to do. I better keep this bad job, even if it's just pumping gas. I'd rather do that because it's safe. Okay, so we're needing a safe way for people to come in and get involved with the Dhamma. An easy way in.
So I'm trying to understand like the full connection between like these weekly Zoom calls and then like getting people into Watts, because that feels like the ultimate kind of goal is to get people into Watts. And it sounds like what you're saying is like, well, we want to do these weekly calls because we want to like just engage the community and like have a way of like modeling of experienced teachers supporting less experienced teachers and like build this like core of the community. And then slowly over time, we're gonna like get parts of this community ingrained in Watts. They're gonna start giving retreats. They're gonna start like and doing that in like a free, like, Donna based way, right?
Yes,
Is that right?
yes, in fact, that's exactly what I would say, that I haven't put words to it like that before. But right now, Western Buddhism is oriented around psychotherapy and around retreats. I would say 90% of all of the people who have ever done a retreat are Westerners. Retreats are not done in Thailand. You know why? Because all you have to do is just walk into the Wat and you're in retreat. And people do that on a regular basis. And they don't have to have all of that organization and money and all of around it that is done with the Western retreats that have been set up with Spirit Rock and Berry Center, because they used a specific model, and they used a specific model that they saw when they were in Burma. But that retreat system was only a Burmese thing. That, yeah, there's a lot of retreats now in Thailand, but the Thais have, in just very recent times, started doing that. And in fact, the first retreats that were ever done were done in the 1950s. We're talking about a very new kind of thing. And so getting the Westerners out of the mentality that Buddhism is buying books, going on Reddit, and going to retreats. That's the Western model. And get them into the model of the Dhamma is hanging out at the Wat. So how do we make that connection would be, I would say, through the two, there's actually several qualities of teachers. When I say quality, I would say stages. One stage at the top would be the old dudes. The ones that I know of, Achan Samedo, Achan Pasana, Pasana, Achan Amaro, Vila Maramsi, Christopher Titmus, others like that, Achan Tanisaro. There are a lot of old dudes around But there's also the old dudes around that are in the Western business model, and everybody knows them, those guys, Jack and Joseph and Sharon Salzberg and um, that group. Then you have more senior teachers, but not elders. Okay, all of the ones that I had mentioned now we're all over 70 years old and been in the Dhamma more than 20 to 50 years. Okay, and then you'll have the more senior teachers like, Chuladasa just died, but you do have Vincent Horn and uh, Daniel Ingram, and there's a whole class of established teachers, but they too would be benefiting from spending time in the Watts. But then you have a new group, let us say those who have been wanting to teach and starting to teach or have been teachers less than 10 years. These are the teachers that are establishing. Those are the ones that we really want to start moving towards the Watts. And then we have the new crowd, those that are just learning the Dhamma now, who will in 5 or 10 years think about becoming monks or think about doing something with their life that's a little bit easier than just pumping gas for Exxon. So this is the idea. So there's a whole range of people that we want to work with, and that the question would be where to start first. The answer is to start with that level that's below a Dan Ingram, the newer ones, the ones who have been in the Dhamma for less than 20 years, 10 years, the ones who are now so serious about it that they really want to do something different with their lives than pumping gas for Exxon. And so those are the ones that we can move into the Watt. But we also have the issue with the ones who were already established but are in it for the money. And we can, communicate with them and get them kind of organized. You see, I don't know of any place other than there's a few connections, but very, very few people have been intentionally going around and meeting people. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that, but that's why I can rattle off 100 names of monks and Dhamma teachers. How many monks and Dhamma teachers by name do you know, or that you've actually met and spent time with? Very few, you see. That's because we don't have the idea of Sangha. But within Thailand, gosh, all of the senior monks at every abbot possibly knows every abbot of every Wat this within the state or the province that he's in. They all communicate. They get together for conferences. They spend time with each other. This is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about the Sangha that the Buddha built, is that it is really community oriented. They live with each other. They're all over each other. That's why they're able to help each other, because they really pay attention to what each other are doing. And so this is why a guy who wants to learn the Dhamma is not going to learn so much Dhamma if he continues spending 8 hours a day pumping gas. But if he's spending 8 hours a day instead listening to the abbot of the Wat or hanging out at the Wat, he'll move in the Dhamma much easier, much faster. He'll be able to figure things out because he can see how things should be done right in front of him. To where when he's pumping gas, he only sees is all the wrong stuff that's done, and then he's got to figure out what is right based upon what he sees is wrong. It's much better to learn by seeing it done right in the first place. Okay, so that's the basic point that we're going at. I don't want to spend the rest of this talk today. This I want to be a business discussion, but the answer to the question, I think that I thoroughly done in that. Basically, I can see two jobs. One is to organize existing Dhamma teachers, to get them to communicate with each other, to get them to share with each other, to make retreats cooperative rather than competitive. Oh, don't go to his retreat. I've got one at the same time. Here, come to my retreat. I'll make more money that way. is the mentality that Western Buddhism has. And so that's the one group, is established teachers. And the other group is those who will become established teachers. Let's help them do that easily and correctly. So that's the end of I don't know what else to say. That's the answer to the question. And the first one is established Dhamma teachers. Let's get a newsletter out. Let's get a website going. Let's get them start to communicate with each other. Let's get a community going. Because that community of established teachers will be exactly what we need to get all of the new teachers who want to be teachers involved. So we start with what we've got.
And so in the email to established teachers, do we want to invite them into that Zoom call? Like, is there
Yes.
a next action? Okay, so in that Zoom call, is that kind of like an introduction to like what Open Sangha Foundation is trying to do, and gauge if they want to be a part of it? Okay, cool.
Well, not so much that they want to be part of it, is that how can they be part of it? Because they really don't have any choice. If they're going to be Dhamma, they've got to be Sangha. It is a triple gem. Sorry, but that's the problem with Western
They're
Buddhism.
already in it, they just don't know.
Yeah, they're already in it. They just don't know.
You talked about the first round of this. There were issues with people getting worried about vetting the teachers. What are your thoughts on that area of things?
Every Dhamma teacher vets himself. When you're thinking about vetting, we're talking about the gurus who do retreats so that they can get people in so that they can molest them. In fact, there's going to be less of that because we're going more and more online, and there's less and less possibility of abuse when you don't have the girl right there in your hands. Okay, that's an important point, and I recognize that this is very Western. I mean, it's almost like an issue with guns. There's an issue of priests with their hands all over people. Okay, that's not an issue in Thailand. That in fact, the few times when someone associated with the robes is arrested for some reason or another, it turns out that he's generally not actually ordained and actually living in a wat. One of the things that happened just recently is this guy's got a family, and he goes out early in the morning, dresses as a monk, goes on bendabat, gets all the food that he can get, takes home and feeds his family. And he got caught at that. Okay, because it's part of the culture here. So I would say offhand that we, as an organization of Open Sangha Foundation, should ignore that issue. Ignore it. Okay, it is not a problem. It's not an issue. Vetting of teachers is not our business. The students of that teacher and other teachers can do the vetting, but in fact, that would be one of the things that we can have as a review, that if somebody has in fact had a bad experience with a Dhamma teacher, we should put that up. But as an organization going around being policemen, sorry, I don't want that. We're not a police organization. Even the Thai monks are not a police organization. They let the Thai police do Thai policing. The monks are not cops. And yet that's what we're asking for. Should we vet our teachers? The answer is no. We do not vet teachers that way. That we are open. We want the very baddest teachers to join our organization. How else are they going to improve? We want to give them the proper training so that they can keep their hands off the girls or out of the pot. That's the whole point of all of this.
Yes.
And so we can't say, oh, we vet you and we say that you're not qualified. You're not good enough to be in our organization. That's not Sangha.
I have a lot of questions, but just related to this. So how do you, if somebody is, so say you have one of the newer people who comes in and they're still learning from the more established ones, um, and if not talking about vetting in terms of like making sure that the person isn't like a sexual predator, but like knowing that the person has enough of a grasp of the Dhamma to actually teach it to others, is there going to be, who makes that decision? Is that going to be like up to the more established
The teacher does.
But now getting them into the Wat, do the monks in the Wat have issues with, is there going to be friction of having somebody come in? And also, sorry, throw one more in before I let you answer, is just, since I know you talked about having people from different traditions, not just like Theravada. Are there
Mhm.
are the monks like in the Watts open to if you have a guy who's trained mostly in Zen and then comes in or that sort of thing? Do you feel like that's going to be a problem?
Let us say that even though I was in India and I was at a Tibetan temple in Mysore, very interesting because Tibetans don't like hot weather and Mysore is hot, and also Dharamsala. But I would also say that I made my closest connections with Vajrayana Tibetan monks at Watsu and Mok, because there was a close connection between the Dalai Lama and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. That's our role model. Our role model is Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and the Dalai Lama sitting together. Okay. My role model is not a Vajrayana monk that's living, a Westerner living in, say, uh, Asheville, North Carolina, trying to get his little group together. The problem with the Tibetan Buddhism in the West is that there are no Tibetans in the West. And the value of the Vietnamese watch is that there are literally millions of Vietnamese in the United States, all of them refugees from the Vietnam War. Okay, so I'm not against the Vajrayana at all, except that the Vajrayana in the West is all Westerners and no Asians. The same is also true with Sri Lanka and Burma, because they didn't have refugees. I do know Sri Lankan monks in the United States, but there was only two Sri Lankan monks in North Carolina in a group of more than 40 Theravada and Vietnamese, et cetera, like that. In fact, it was the Laotians who made up the biggest part of it. Most of the Wats in North Carolina were Laotian Wats, because there was a large Laotian community. But the community of Vietnamese is even bigger, but they tend to build big temples in big cities. And so there's several very large Vietnamese cities in Charlotte, two of them in Raleigh, and that's it. To where the Laotians, they've got them all over the place, little places you never heard of. They've got, like in High Point, and then never mind, I won't go all into that, but that's the point. Okay, is that it would be better for us then to work with people getting into the watch that we know exist already. And so making divisions like Sri Lanka and Burma and Tibet and Zen and all of that, those are artificial boundaries. Those are locations. The Dhamma sneaks under boundaries. The Dhamma has no passport. And the monks don't see that I was just as welcome in the one Sri Lankan Wat. In fact, the last contact that I ever had with monks in North Carolina was with the Sri Lankan monks, because they call me later. But anyway, that's the point, is that it's a community. And the monks see it that way. And the Western mentality is seeing it as, oh, well, they're Theravada, or, oh, they're Vajrayana. Would they want to be in our organization or not? The answer to that is it depends upon their mentality. If they've got a Western mentality, they'll say no. If they've got an Asian mentality, they'll say, sure, come on in.
So just to clarify, when you talk about getting the teachers into the Watts and the temples, are you talking primarily in the U.S. or bringing them to Asia then?
I know mostly about the U.S. There is no reason to go to Asia because already some of the best monks in Asia are in the West already. Europe, I don't know so much about because Europe's a different situation. But the U.S. and now Canada, and also there has been a Watt in Mexico City since the early 1990s. It's like 30 years has been a Watt in Mexico, and everybody says there's Watts in Mexico. Yeah, but then the surprise is for 30 years there's been Watts in Mexico. And so that's the point is that we don't get the information out when it's all disorganized. So the website and the newsletters and all of that kind of stuff are designed to get some knowledge in there so that people can have new choices. Right now, the only choice that a guy has is spending $7,000 getting a teacher certificate, and now he feels comfortable that he can teach the Dhamma because he's got a piece of paper. And what we need is someone who feels comfortable teaching the Dhamma because he's been around some of the best teachers. Okay, so there's one more point on that, and that is that in the West, the Western teachers have the idea of, number one, I've got to eat, and number two, I got to teach, and I want to put those together so that I can make some money teaching the Dhamma. That's true on everything. That's true in engineering, it's true in psychology, it's true in medicine, it's true everywhere. That people want to go do what they love to do and to make money on it. And most people wind up not having that money becomes more important than what they love to do. That's not true in Asia. That's not true in Sangha. What's there is that if the monk becomes a monk because he's interested in the Dhamma, he's got his meal ticket. He goes on Vendabat. He eats at the Wat. The lay people will feed him. So dinner is not the issue. The meal ticket is no longer the point. Now, does he teach the Dhamma or not depends upon his relationship with the more senior monks around. That in fact, that happened to me. I remember it specifically. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po set me up. It was a planned event. And it started out with a whole lot of Westerners and a whole lot of Asian monks, and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was going to give a talk, but he was going to have me to interpret what he said. And he started off with talking about the Four Noble Truths, and I said, yes, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is talking about the Four Noble Truths. I go back and get the next sentence, and he says, you take it from here. They set me up to be a Dhamma teacher. I don't think that, well, I was already a teacher in a university with computer science, but that was it. And so that's how actually in Asia, most teachers become teachers is because they're thrown into it, not because they want to do it to make money. It's a completely different mentality. So what we need to do then is to get the guys involved with the Wat so that their meal ticket is no longer the big issue in their life. And then the senior monks, believe me, if you move, one of you guys moves into whatever local Wat, slowly, you go for a visit. You go for a visit next week. You go for a visit a week after that. You go for a visit and you spend the night. And you start slowly getting close to the abbot and whatnot like that, you won't have to ask him, can we do a meditation class on Wednesday night? He will be the one who suggests that to you. You go do it. I'll watch over you. because the monks are interested in having the Dhamma spread around. Robert, you've had your hand up for quite a while, and I've got to go talk with a puppy right now, so I'll be right back, and you can have it.
All right, howdy. So, I guess one thought or question, as far as criteria goes for teachers, and I think this is in line with what a couple of other people were asking. What do you imagine? Do we have, like, say, a sign up page for teachers and just anyone can sign up to be a teacher, on the network, just anyone at all? Or do we have some kind of form you have to fill out? Like, kind of in a concrete sense, what does establishing criteria for teachers look like? Because if the puppy is a Dhamma teacher, then anyone's a Dhamma teacher. Therefore, anyone that wants to sign up should be able to as a teacher. So
Absolutely. So I would say that rare occasion that you're talking about, a one-time shot when someone says, "Oh, I'm going to use the Open Sangha Foundation as a method for getting me into the what do I do?" And I would say the answer to that was give Dhammarato a Skype call, and we will do what that student needs directly, rather than having a form or a format that all the hoops that a student has to jump through. I would say no. In the beginning, let's do it like that. And then after I'm dead, someone else can pick it up. But that would be something I'd be willing to do for the rest of my life, is help guide young men to find a way into a Wat.
cool.
And so, yeah, a sign-up sheet. That's all we need. Hey, if you're interested in becoming a teacher of the Dhamma, sign here and call Dhammarato.
So
That
kind
would
of
be all.
oh, sorry.
But it would still be up to the student. I can guide him, but he's the one who's going to have to go visit the Wats. I can't lead him by the hand into and introduce him, but Robert and I will be in the background. In other words, when a student says, "Oh, I found a Wat that I like, and here's the name of the abbot," I've got Robert here in Thailand who knows Thai language excellent, and he can also communicate in the with Lao. I won't go into the distinction between the Lao and the Thai language, but they're close enough. So that the Lao understand the Thai, and the Thai don't understand the Lao. There's reasons for that. So in any case, we have a huge community where we already speak the local language, even if the abbot is, let us say, very spotty. Most of the old monks in the United States do not speak English very well. They don't. But that is not necessarily a hindrance. But also it has to do with connections and communications. That in fact, I'm absolutely sure that Eric was able to fit in the way that he did, simply because we talked to Achan Tanet, we talked to Achan Reet talked to the Achan of the Wat that he's in, and there's more talking in Thai language about Eric than there is in English. Tyler.
Hey, so I just want to be mindful of time because we have we coming up a couple of minutes on 6:30, and just want to make sure we have clear next steps for the things we got to do. So
yeah, we were going to be a business meeting, and now we're off into how to get guys into the Wats. I'd like to get back to it. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to make sure because we have a clear action items there. So one we already talked about was emailing the established teachers. And so I have the MailChimp set for that. So whoever wants to write that email, we should be good to go there. But then I think the other major thing is the website, and just finishing the first version of the website. And I just want to make sure we're on the same page about what we're actually building there. Because based on what we've talked about so far, the big thing was about the list of the Wats, and then also the list of teachers. Those are feeling a little bit less important to have right now based on what the conversation we've had so far.
That's what I'm looking for, is the structure, not necessarily filling in all of the data. but to get away so that we are going to make sure in advance that our record structures or our data collection will collect all the data that eventually we will want to collect, even if it can be done in just text fields for comments and things like that. So we want to be able to start collecting data on watts, and there's some of the information that we know for sure, like the name of the watt, a contact person, 2, 3, 4 telephone numbers, 1 or 2 email addresses. That's the problem with the watts is that it's not just one watt name with one address, one telephone number, one email, one website. No, one name of a contact person. No, we're going to have the ability to have 3 or 4 or 5 names with 3 or 4 or 5 telephone numbers, 3 or 4 email addresses, all associated with 1 watt. And so that's what makes the data collection a little bit complicated. But all we want to do right now is just get that structure in advance, so that then and a web page so that people can go and fill that kind of data in. Hey, do you know this watt, or do you know a watt? What do you know about a watt? Go and find that what we have about that watt and start filling in some of the detail. An example of that would be in eventually how many Westerners by name have ever lived in this watt. And so that's the way that we need to start collecting the data. Now, it does not have to be cross-indexable so that you could go and say, oh, I want to find if Joe Blow has been in what watts in his life. That we don't need. We don't need to do it that way. And so it could be a fairly simple structure, not something just, deeply SQL'd.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like the data we want to collect is like, okay, are you a watt? Like, tell us about like this watt and anything you can so we can help connect people. The other is we're going to collect information about like experienced teachers. It sounds like if like you're an experienced teacher and you want to get involved, we want to collect something about that too. I'm assuming, right? Like get them on the mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes, right. So
Okay.
that's one of the things that we need to start working on immediately is just an email list of all of the established teachers to say,
So,
hey, we're building
yeah.
an open Sangha foundation that is a foundation that's primarily around the teachers to become in community and to bring that community, the Asian community and the Western community together. The Asians already have a community. It's the Westerners who have no community. And so we need to do it on 2 fronts. One is to get the teachers in community with themselves, and then get parts of those in community with the Asian temples. So that's the 2 items. Established teachers, getting them to communicate with each other, and then newer students will become established with the watts. That's
that makes
the
sense.
two-pronged approach.
And is it basically only the email we need from these experienced teachers, or is there something else where like we kind of need more details about them, like their practice? So we just I don't know their phone number.
Yes, but the way to get that information is by inviting them to give us that information, and we need a website where they can put in that information. But again, to get that information, we need to start with an email address.
Yes. So I guess the reason I'm asking this is because I'm going to build up the website, and so far there's one. I think there's 2 forms we need. One form is like a bunch of details about a watt. Then the second form is entering your email address, and that'll get you on our MailChimp. And if you're a teacher who's interested, that's how you'll hear about our Zoom. But I'm wondering if we need a third form that's describing like all the details of a teacher, like everything about their practice, who they are, their experience, their lineage, or whatever. Do we need like a third form on them? Okay.
Right, and that would be for them to fill out.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So I think we should be in a good spot. I can like make those elements of it. I think Parker has a bunch of content for the other pieces, or just more like context about like what we're building, and I think we should be in a good place there. I think the last but then we won't build out like the displaying of like the cool map and like a fancy pictures and everything
Well,
Everybody.
actually, that that map that we have, that Google, I've actually just recently worked with another student. That's an excellent way for students to find temples. See, right now we don't even know where they are. The only way that we know where the temples are is that uh, page that we already have on our website. With worldwide, I think that in fact it is every temple that Google knows about everywhere in the world is on that map.
Yeah, it is pretty. It is missing a lot. There's just a couple that are in my hometown. I know that aren't there, and like in LA, there's like the big one in LA. I don't think is there.
If we
The big
told
ones in Burma
Google
aren't there.
about them, would they then show up on our map?
No, that's the thing is that they are on Google. It's just that whatever the query was that pulled them in, it was only a very small subset, and a lot of the ones that show up in my hometown are also not relevant. They're closed down, or they're like not actually real watts. Some of them too.
It would be better if we had that on the website for people to find that and do their own research than to offer them nothing and say you're on your own. I would
Well,
say that
The idea
map that
that
we
I
have is
had
be a key element of our website.
would
Yes, Park.
be it could be a map, but that does seem like a lot of overhead. But also, instead, we could.
I thought it was just a plug-in that all the work was done on Google's machines anyway.
not quite. The easy part is creating a map is easy. Like that's not the hard part. It's actually getting good information in there. And the problem with the map now is that it's actually, I think, not good information. It would actually be a lot easier to just tell someone to go to Google.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's someplace for us to start. Okay.
Well,
That in fact, Keyshawn
yeah.
has used that map to find what's in Chicago. Without that map, he wouldn't have known what to do because just Googling, um, let's say the word Buddha and the word Wat or temple and the word the city that you're in often causes a lot of work and people don't get good information at all. So we need the
That would be
help.
the core issue, because people can Google it. You can Google Buddhist temple Google Map, and there is a specific section even in Google Map where they have an icon with a Buddhist, the Buddhist icon, and there are a more thorough list of temples. So we would have to make the decision: would it be better to do a thorough article teaching people how to Google it on their own and vet it on their own, or would it be more worthwhile to have a map there that it has somewhat spotty information?
Okay, since we already have the map,
So,
going with
but
what we have, I like that map, and I think that we ought to keep it, even if it's got bad information. But what you're saying is, how can people find other temples other than that map? Would be a good thing to put on that one page. Okay, so this is how you find them. This is something that Google has, and here is how to find even more places.
I guess the clarification
But
there,
that's
I
the
wouldn't.
problem right now is that it's been 15 years since I've been in the U.S. and I don't remember the names of the watch. I don't remember the names of the abbots or any of that kind of stuff. And so if I were going to go look for a what that I had been to, I would go to that map that's on our
So
website.
just a big clarification though is that it's not like we have that map and we just drop it into our new thing. Like it's a totally different framework, and also the people who built that and maintained it, like I can't get in contact with them. I'm not really even sure how to reach out to them, and if what they built is even going to
I
be
do.
usable. Okay,
Beth
so
did it.
okay,
Okay, so I know what if you need to get in touch with her, or can you just see the thing that I find kind of amusing here, Tyler, is that when Keyshawn imported that stuff into Hostinger, that thing works. It still works. We can use it right this very minute. I don't understand why we can't just grab it the way that it is and put it into our website. Just grab that whole page. We don't even have to begin in the beginning to even make a change to that web page. Just grab it and put it into our that page.
yeah. I mean, if someone could connect me to who? Like I've just reached out to Willie, who's my understanding the person who built that, and it was like seemed like
No,
a very
Willie did
custom
not
thing.
do that. Willie did not do that map.
Okay. Yeah, I just need
That
the
map,
name
that
and
Beth
the
did the
email.
map, but I don't even, because Keyshawn was able to bring it up. I mean, it's actually working on the website that Keyshawn put on
the
Hostinger.
zip file. I
It
have the zip
works.
file.
It's working right now. I don't understand what the problem is.
The
I
problem
don't
is
see
that
any problem at all. It just works.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that we're going on to a totally different framework. And so we're on WordPress right now. And the thing about WordPress is that like what we have now works, but like the big thing is that it's really hard to update. And also all the people who've like built some custom plugins with it, like I don't know, I've tried to get in contact with people. I've been like struggling to like actually do that, right? And I even know I can't even like update our current site. And
Okay,
so the
well,
idea
What
of
needs to
going
be
here's the
updated on the
thing,
web
that
on the map is a question.
the original site had two things. It only had two things besides some content. It had only two things. One thing it had was this map, which I want to keep. The other thing that it did was have people contact a teacher, and that it was done through a MailChimp. I'm understanding now that there are better ways of doing it than MailChimp. So what we can do is whatever hosting system that you use, Wix or whatever, just grab that page and put it as one of the pages. You don't have to make any changes at all, so long as we keep that map. And then the thing that we need to fix, which is broken now, is all of the email stuff that we need in the web page. So that's what we can have you to concentrate on, is to get there's another besides somebody had one, I forgot the name of it, other than MailChimp, that would be better. But we need to get the some email system working.
So we already have. So I have set that up on MailChimp, and we kind of talked about that a couple months ago. We decided MailChimp was actually the best tool. So that's actually all set up. We're good to go on MailChimp. The big thing is just that it's not as easy as grabbing the page. Like the thing is like, yes, it's a totally different framework. And so I just need to talk to somebody who's like knows this tool, knows how it was built, and then I can make progress. But as it stands now, I haven't been able to get in contact with anybody who made it. So I just need an email address.
Guess what?
And then I'll be in.
You don't know it, but on the website, okay, the person who did that Google map, was one of the teachers that is on the teachers list, that is set up so that if someone wants to contact her through the website, that the website itself has her email address. This is Beth. So if you can go and find out what data we have with Beth that's on the website, it will have her email address. And I don't know how to find her email address, but the website did know how to find her email address, because they did have it working. So her email address is in there some places. So if you can find her email address, you can get in touch with her. But like I said, I don't think that you need to get in touch with her. Okay, here's the thing. Here's a way of looking at it. Okay, it does not even have this page that we're talking about. Let's set it aside from all the other stuff that you're doing. Okay, and have it separate. But you could still have a link in your web page and the website that you're building to this page that we've got that's already working. That's the only way that you can need to do it, and maybe with a return button that we can put in that web page to get back to your website. But links are just done all over the places. You cannot tell me we cannot use that page.
Well,
I know enough about computers to know that we can use that thing like a subroutine and just call it and just let it do its thing. We do not have to incorporate it into our website or do anything with it. Just link to that page is all I'm asking you to do.
We can do that. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about the trade-off of that. the trade-off is that we'd have to keep the open. So we're gonna have Sangha Foundation.org, right? And that's our new website. And we're also gonna have Sanghafoundation.com, which is the old website where the map is. So we'd have to keep the .com running, which has it's then we would have to link to .com from .org, and we would not.
Well, you can copy that page to .org too. You can just make a copy of it, .com and .org, and you can link to it that way. I don't see still what the name of the link is not important.
So I'll talk to Beth and see what we can do. I'm a software engineer, and I had difficulties with it. And that's all I'm trying to express is that I have built a lot of websites before. I was struggling with this. I'll talk to Beth about it. But I had a proposal for this, which was what we could instead do is that, the problem with the current map is it's a lot of like really low quality information. And it's also is not clear what it really means, because it's just like, okay, are these people that we have a relationship with? Is this the information quality is also often very lacking. Like we don't necessarily even know anybody at these watts. We don't necessarily have a phone number for them. And so what could be an interesting idea is that we could have a map and we start off with an empty map. And as we collect watts, we can easily kind of add them onto that map. Right. And so we can like basically start from scratch and then add things.
I can't do that. I cannot add start off with a blank page and add watts. But Google can start off with a page that's already got a bunch of watts, some of which are not good information. In other words, I still think that what we've got is good enough to start. We don't need another map. This is all the map that we need. And if you want to, you can put a disclaimer. This is Google's map. This is what Google has, and we're putting it on our website just to help you to locate your nearest watts. We're not trying to do it all for them or make sure that all of our information is perfect. You're still in a Western business model. Come out of that and come into a Sangha model. The Sangha model is that we'll give you any and every piece of information that we've got, even if some of it is incorrect.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I found the map personally harder to use and very confusing more than Google. And so this is why I'm expressing this, is that I found it actually misleading and less helpful than being.
I found it essential. I found it essential. I say that that's absolutely the best thing that we have out of that whole ordeal of the old website. That's the only thing that's really salvageable other than the content, and the content's been changed. But that map is extraordinarily useful.
Okay, I'll talk to Beth and I'll see what we can do. I struggled with it for a while. I'll see if she has any secret tickets for me to figure it out.
If we can get anything out of this conversation, is to convince Tyler that we want to keep that map. Then I would say that this conversation has been a good conversation, because I know that you've been against that map. And that, as far as I'm concerned, the map is the only thing that we can salvage.
Sure. All I want to express is that I'm having a lot of trouble with it, and I'm a software engineer, and so I need to talk to Beth. And
how could you possibly have any trouble with it when I've got it working? I mean,
because
we're working on our the thing that Keyshawn put in. I mean,
because we're using a new framework. You're on WordPress. We're moving to a new framework. I'm not even sure how that data is being pulled and populated, so I can't recreate it on a new framework. That's the problem.
But you don't have to. All you have to do is just use that HTML, that one page, that HTML page that's got all that code in it, and just link to it.
So the thing with Wix, and the beauty of being on Wix, is that it's not, you don't do a bunch of custom things on it. And what's nice about that is it makes it easy for other people
to edit. Any web page will allow you to put in a link.
So the
go to another website.
Sure. So something I want to clarify though, is that yes, you can have a link as, hey, look at this, but the trade-off of that though is that we have this other website called Sanghafoundation.com, which has a bunch of other random stuff on it. And we're creating a new website that will have very different content and very different meaning behind what it is. I just want to say that will be a confusing thing. We can figure that out, but
we will not. On your .org website that you're creating that's new, you can have one link to this .org and just leave it like it is. You don't have to make any changes other than just link to it.
Okay. I'll give it a shot. I'll look into it. We'll see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. If it weren't working and we had to fix it, then I would say, okay, let's start over again. But since it's now working, let's keep it.
Okay.
And all the other stuff is a good idea too, but we do need to give the let us say the student population or the member population the ability to add new data. And that originally I was hoping that we could somehow connect them. Now that I'm not even hoping to connect those two things now. That we can leave them completely separate. One is just a map. Go look, use this map to go find places if you want to do that. But if you already know some data, then here, plug it into this database.
Yeah, and the difficulty though is I want to actually, so I really want to create this map, right? And that's what I want to do. But the hard part is that I don't know how to get the data from the old map. And also, if we point to the old map, I can't edit it. So this is the big
I'm
thing.
sure that it was just a bunch of code that was plugged into that page.
Yeah. Okay.
That
So
if you just grab that Google code off of that page and just use it. But if you're saying that's hard to do, then I would say, well, then don't grab the code off of that HTML page. Put a link to that HTML page and just let that HTML page do its thing.
Okay. I'll look into it. The problem though is it'll be hard to edit that. And so let me talk to Beth.
I don't want it edited.
Okay.
Let's say that we don't edit that page.
Okay.
Maybe the only editing we do is take all of the content out and put some little new content in.
Okay,
some
cool.
Text.
So
and that would be the only thing we edit on that page would be text.
Okay, so sounds good. I do have to drop off here in a second. I just want to make sure that because that it's going to take me a while to talk to Beth, figure this out. What I would like to do in the meantime is just get an initial version of the website out that maybe does not have the map, and we can kind of figure this out. I could talk to Beth in the meantime and figure all of the details out.
Okay.
Would that work for you guys? I don't want this to be a blocker.
Yeah, let us say instead of leaving it out, let's leave a link or put a link into it so that it links to the page that exists now. So that would be the only thing. Instead of leaving it out, let's just link to it. That would make it really easy for you.
Okay, that sounds good. And then also, since we don't have our 501c3 set up, I can't get the discount for the on Wix. And so I was just going to pay a higher rate and just to make sure that we're okay with that.
Well, that brings up the old point about why do it in Wix when we already are doing it in WordPress.
Yeah, so the rationale was that I've really struggled contacting people who have been actually built that old site. And WordPress is kind of I think it's a nightmare to work on. And also there's a bunch of custom things happening, including the map, that make it really difficult to work on. And so if there was somebody who worked on that previously, could spend a lot of time and walk me through it, that would be awesome. But as it stands now, I don't even have the ability to edit it. And I have been struggling contacting anybody who can help me out. And so basically my understanding
I would assume to edit it that all I would have to do is just to bring it into that web page, that HTML code into an editor like Microsoft Word.
You would hope
make
so.
the changes to it.
Unfortunately not. Yeah.
And then
unfortunately it's not that easy. And the thing is, I actually, even if we had, you copy paste it in Microsoft Word, make your edits, and then when I bring it back, I cannot even make an edit to the website as it stands right now. I have access to our hostinger, but I can't get into our WordPress admin account. And so basically my understanding of the situation.
Do we have wait a minute, do we have a WordPress admin account?
We do, yeah. We have one. We should have one for I think I have the logins for all this stuff. We should have one for that hostinger of OpenSangha.foundation.com. But when I go into it, I kind of forget exactly what happened. I was basically not able to access it. So basically the situation I kind of find myself in right now when trying to do the website is that I'm the only one trying to make progress on the website, and all the people who had the context about how it was built in the past, I'm having trouble reaching out to them. And so this is basically, and then there's a bunch of custom things that are happening on the website too that make it hard to maintain. And so the whole frame.
Well, I assumed that there were 3 pieces of custom things. One was PayPal, one was the email, and one was this map. Those are the only things, okay? And we need to do the PayPal on our own. We need to do the email on our own. But this web page that has this map on it, we could just link to that. Just keep that page in existence. We could actually just put that page in there with the .org rather than the .com and just add that page in without making any changes to the page at all. Just
Tyler, why don't we connect together and we can talk it through sometime whenever you're free later this week because I know you're low on time. We can just really hammer out what specific things we want to have on the website, because right now it probably isn't worth doing the work to find out that, hey, something else is a better option. So we'll connect later this week and we'll have a good plan for it.
Parker and Tyler, I'd really like to hand this to you guys. Parker, if you would take over on this particular thing. So let's finish now with that, because we're the website's still a work in progress. And so we now have the other 2 items. Actually, there's 3. One is 501(c). The second one is the email. And the third one is PayPal. Those are the only 3 the items that we need. And Christopher has been very patiently sitting here listening to us hash out the issues about the website. But I think that it would be good if we spent some time talking about the 501(c). I think we have enough names now.
Right. Yeah, I do have to drop off, y'all. But I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys later. And Parker, let's sync later this week.
We'll connect soon. See you, Tyler.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Thank you. By the way, Tyler, thank you so much. You're very, very helpful. I really do appreciate that we have somebody who finally knows what they're doing.
I don't quite know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to find someone who knows what they're doing so they could walk me through the old website. So
okay, on that web page would be Beth. Go for looking for Beth's web address, because she was the one who was involved with that Google Doc.
Okay, sounds good. All right, bye everybody. See you guys.
Bye. See you, Tyler.
So, Christopher, are we good to start with the 501(c) now? I think that we've got a list of 9 or 10 names, and we've got an address, and we've got some money. What else do we need?
Yeah, I think we have I mean, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah, 10 people. So yeah, we have 10 people on the board. Yeah, I guess, I think we're ready to go. I mean, the only thing that Parker and I were talking about is, should we have somebody else do it, rather than us do it? Because the IRS thing is not to be played with. Every I has to be dotted and every T has to be crossed, and we've neither one of us have ever done anything like that before. So there are people that actually.
Well, Robert's got a lawyer in his family, and unfortunately, Robert has just dropped off, and I wanted him to be here for the part that of the 501(c). So he left. Let me see if I can call him to get him back on. How do we do this?
I mean, that would be ideal if we could have an attorney do it, because when I talked to Daniel Ingram, he had attorneys do all of that stuff. He's on a bigger budget, obviously, but we.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I imagine that he didn't pay to have.
He did.
He
paid
paid
a lot. Oh yeah, and a lot. Yep.
Wow.
But his donation, goals are like a million or more a year. So it's a whole nother level.
Does anybody know how to call Robert? Participant.
Yes, participants, and then you click the phone by his name. See.
Oh, not on this call. Okay, I got it. Let me call Robert and see if we can get him back on the call. In any case, yes, he's got a lawyer that might, because he's in the family, will do some pro bono work. But I do know that lawyers, even if you have to pay them, we can still do most of the work so that we don't have to pay them to do all of the work, that we can get almost all of it done. What I would recommend, the first thing that we do is to go to whatever web page that we need, get all the forms that we need, and start filling them out. And after we get those forms
that's
filled
what I'm
out,
saying.
we present it to the IRS. And when the IRS comes back with stuff, that's when we would get a lawyer involved. Is when they come back to us saying blah 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 blah, and we say, oh, we need a lawyer for that.
Christopher, you sent that book with some of the legal information. So Christopher and I connected maybe 2 weeks ago, and we know it's the easy part is getting the corporation and IEN in Arizona, but within that corporation thing, we need additional information because the IRS will be reading over those article of incorporations stuff. So Christopher sent a book, like a legal guide to it. I think it would be good for us to at least scan through that to know what we're getting into if we're asking someone to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had a chance to do it because I'm in the midst of a pretty large project. So, but I mean, I looked at it on that first day. I mean, the other thing where I sent you that lady that was relatively inexpensive that sets up she'll like Parker's saying, I mean, setting up a company is super easy. Getting an EIN is not hard. The thing is we have to do it exactly a certain way to give to the IRS, or it'll bounce back. So, there's a couple of services that do that kind of thing for you. I mean, we found a pretty reasonable one that does it.
Yeah, I imagine that you don't have to go downtown to a great big building and go into a great big fancy office to find a lawyer to do this. That I think that we can find lawyers on the web or whatever who do this as an easy business so that your fees are really low. I would assume we can do this for less than $1,000 for the legal fees plus all of that, and then we're good. But if we need to spend $10,000 for a lawyer, I'm against that.
I don't even think we need an attorney per se for the paperwork part. There's the thing that I sent Parker, there's a lady that does it. So she'll do the state incorporation, the bylaws and a conflict of interest policy, and she'll do your 501c3 application. It's under $200. You still got to pay the IRS thing.
Oh, sure, I know that. Right, you're going to have state fees, legal fees, and IRS fees. So we got all three of those. And
she also has a board member package that's like $50. I'd have to ask her what that is, but things like that. We're probably going to need some templates. Here's that sets up how the board works.
I'm thoroughly okay with doing that. Let's do it. If her fees are only a couple of $100, $300, $400, $1,000, I'm good for. But I know lawyers.
Oh yeah,
I know lawyers, and when you get a trial lawyer, you're going to have a lot of money involved with it. Okay, but we don't need a trial. All we need is a paperwork lawyer, and I think that we could get that done pretty cheap.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we found some reasonable ways to go about it. I think the main thing is getting it filed, and then the other thing is going to be the yearly reporting, which is that's going to require some, like somebody with an accounting background, and make sure that all that stuff is filed correctly every year. That's like, for everything that I've read so far, That is like the most critical part. Like, all the funds have to be spent in a certain way. Everything has to be accounted for. You can't buy things that aren't related to this, and everything has to be reported
Oh,
yearly.
well, I
So,
was hoping that you guys would build me a penthouse in the condo here.
you already live in a penthouse. What are you talking
I do, right. Penultimate. This is the penthouse. Yeah, I understand that. There's a whole lot of problems with graft and corruption, but I don't see that being an issue for a while, a year or so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's
I-
just we want to have it right out of the gates
We
because the
want to we
IRS
want
is
to have it
it's
set
not.
up so that it is actually
Yeah,
easy in the future, but there won't be much to it for the
yeah.
first year or so.
The IRS is just a pain in the ass to deal with. Any federal bureaucracy is not fun to have any
Actually,
contact.
Actually, no, they're not a pain in the ass to deal with. All the pain in the ass comes from the mindset of the people who don't like the IRS. If you like the
Well,
IRS, then they're not a pain in the ass.
yeah, yeah. Well, it depends how much free time you have to answer a billion questions that they'll ask if you mess something up. I mean, if you're,
Well, if they send you a bunch of questions like that, send those questions to me and I'll answer them without it being a pain in the ass.
okay.
And that would be the way that I would have done it in the first place, is give it a go and find out what questions they do want to have answered. And then that's the easy way. The hard way is to do all the work first and get it done right the first time. That's so much work.
Yeah. But
The easy way to do it
it'll
is
be
to do it
so
and
much
fail and
better.
then fix that and then do it again and fail and then fix that little thing. And then after a time, you got it right. And you failed a bunch of times, but we don't like to fail. I don't mind failing. Failing is cheap. Doing it right the first time sounds expensive.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true with the IRS, Alvarado. I mean, in fact, I know it's not true with the IRS because I've dealt with things like that before. So yeah, the expense will be quite higher if you screw up, and time, money, and possibly losing your whole 501c3 status.
Well, then we'll just give it another name and start again. Never mind, start again. Don't be afraid of this. This is actually not a hard thing to do. I think that it's actually quite easy. I know that the IRS has a lot of rules and whatnot like that, but we can uh, find out how to do it.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
do agree that if you can find a lawyer who is in this business of just doing the paperwork and is willing to give us all the paperwork that we need for a couple of $300, then sure, do it.
Yeah, I don't
But
think it's an
hiring a
attorney,
lawyer,
but I don't think this is going to be an attorney, but somebody who specializes in that. The lady that I
okay.
found has a lot of good reviews, but she's not an attorney. But
Well,
that's her
if it's
specialty is
okay,
filing.
if it's okay with you guys, let's do it. Parker, are you okay with Christopher using this lady?
Yes, this sounds good. This sounds like a good idea.
How about you, Todd? It's okay with you that he uses that lady?
From what I've heard so far, sounds great. I am, however, I have to say, one of those like cross the T's and dot the I's 10 times before you do anything kind of people. So like it's hard for me to sign off on anything without, quadruple checking it. But from what I've heard so far, it sounds like a reasonable way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Well,
would
I'm
be at
hoping.
least worthwhile to reach out, Christopher, and see what information we need, and we can get that together, and then maybe catch up and collect that information, and then submit it if necessary.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean that's mostly going to be on your side since you're going to be the incorporator. That's a good question too. I'd like to find out, like, even though you're incorporating, you're not really the owner per se, because that's something that I don't fully understand how that works with the whole thing, because there's no shares. I don't think. I don't know how that works with,
Well, nonprofit organizations generally don't have shares.
right, because well, yeah, I read two different things on that, but yeah, and
It
it's
depends upon the state law. That's the whole point about the difference between the IRS and state laws is something that needs to be looked into. So we may have to actually, because of Arizona, have to actually get a corporation or maybe an
oh, that's a
LLC.
definitely a corporation. Yep.
Okay.
It's going to be a
But it's
corporation.
going to be a nonprofit corporation.
That's right.
And so nonprofits don't need shares.
Right.
But some states, I don't know the laws of all the states. So
Yeah,
anyway, I think though that we've got kind of the marching orders. If you'll go ahead, Christopher, and get a hold of that lady, and Parker can look into whatever it takes for the incorporation. We should be able to find all of that on the web without having to go downtown to visit the clerk's office or something. That it should all be on the web for us to find it.
Oh, everything will be web based. Even if if we were just setting up a company that wasn't a nonprofit, nothing ever has to. You don't ever have to go anywhere. I mean, that's been like that for 20 years. Like I set up a company in 1999. You know, on the web. It's been like that forever. And I think this lady, you give her your login or whatever, she does everything online too. You know, she said I've been like part of it says she can mail everything to you, but if you just give her the login information, she'll log into your account, do all the paperwork, and submit it right there. Done.
Okay. Very good. Well, I think that we've got a plan now. So we've got the web page going with Tyler, and you've got the 5013C. The next thing that we can discuss is the issue of the PayPal, but I think that we can wait on that. We don't need to add that to the web page or anything, so we can wait on that. And that I think that since we're not ready for a newsletter, we can let MailChimp and the email and the PayPal, we can leave those things for later. So I think that we've got enough going now that we can finish this call. What do you think, Parker?
Yes, I think this has been good.
Real
Excellent.
quick on the web page thing, I wasn't fully understanding how WordPress could be complicated because I mean I've had like I don't know a dozen WordPress websites. I mean it's very easy to edit
The
on one.
answer is he doesn't like it.
Oh, okay. I mean, I personally, if I was going to create a website now, I wouldn't use WordPress. I'd just use Markdown pages and make it a static website. It's faster, it's easier, it can be edited instantly, and you can create new pages in a text processor. You don't have to sit there and do anything special.
Right. That's
You
what I'm
drop it in.
thinking with that one web page. Is just use it as just an HTML page. It stands
Yep.
alone by itself. It's a website all on its own.
Yep. Yeah, like the
So
more complicated things get, there's a lot more. Like he was right about that. You get more maintenance,
right,
and you got to have people constantly
right.
updating stuff.
So, well, here's the thing about the going back to the website then, is the complications to me is the emailing and the donations. Those are the only two complicated things. The other one, which would be a little bit complicated, is making sure that we have the way to collect data so that when people start adding data, that it will fit into the structure that we create without having to go and add new database structures. Let's get the database structures right the first time so that people can add any and everything that they want to add. And so then even though the web page itself is static, it's collecting data, more and more data, which then can be presented as more and more data without any maintenance of the website. Just like a program, if it'll work with 2 pieces of data, it'll work with 100 pieces of data. It'll work with 10,000 pieces of data. And so that's the way that we want it, is to get the data structure set up correctly so that we could just plug more and more and more data in, and the website will grow all on its own without having any changes made. The only changes that are going to be complicated have to do with PayPal, taking donations, and emailing. Those are the only complications that will have any maintenance to it. And so we're
How
going
much
to
how
read
much
those.
email are we planning on doing?
Let us say that it depends upon what year it is. Okay. The first year we will be doing maybe an email to 200 people once every 3 months. The next year
We could do that from Gmail.
Well, I've tried to do 200 from Yahoo, and they closed my account.
Yeah, I send 1,000 emails a day out of Gmail. Right, yeah.
Well, Gmail or whatever, we still need the connection with the web page.
Yeah, that's
So
easy too.
Pardon?
That's easy too.
Okay.
I could do that through like a Google form, and then it goes right into a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet mails right out of the email account. I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to start without having to use a service, we could do it right through Gmail. If you want to have it start right with a service right away, that's fine. For
Well,
large
10 years
numbers
in,
of email.
10 years in, I can say that we will be sending out a newsletter every month to 10,000 people.
Then you want to have a service. Then you want to use.
Then we'll need a service. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say let's start with a service from the beginning and do it free. And then when it gets too much to be free, like MailChimp will do 2,000. Well, we're under 2,000, so let's do MailChimp free. And then when we want to add more people to go over that limit, then we can make it a business thing, which would be a
Sure.
year or two now.
Yeah, MailChimp gives you you can mail up to 2,000 people, or 2,000 emails, or 2,000 people.
You can send an email, which is the way that we're wanting to do it. We can send an email, a newsletter, to up to 2,000 people. In fact, the limit is how many email addresses will they keep on their database. They'll
That's
keep
great.
2,000.
That's a good deal. Great deal. Yeah, I'm on there right now. Yeah, monthly email send limit is 10,000 sends, daily limit of 2,000. That's great on the free.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Real good.
All right. Well, let's work on MailChimp and PayPal later. Right now, let's get a 501(c) and let's get that web page up and running and with some content. Those are our two primary things right now, guys.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yep.
Anybody got any last questions? Anything from Todd?
No, we covered most of them. Nothing worth dragging on for another day, maybe. I think that
All right.
we're good for now. Thank you, though.
Well, with what we've been talking about, if you have anything to add, you can talk to Tyler, you can talk to Parker, you can talk to Christopher. I would really like it if Todd, if you could get as involved with this as you please.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, that's all we got. Thank you, Parker, for setting this stuff up. I really appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks, Parker.
Good work.
Yep.
Good work.
Thank you, Parker.
See you guys.
We'll see ya.
Good night. Good day.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate your help too. You've really been you're getting us going. That's what we need.